this room hosted the Wiki Fun session. The Wiki Fun session turned out to be a question of how do you organize social history on a wiki? And that is what we started with. And this is what we ended with. It may still get added to. This is a work in progress. And hopefully there are no deletionists around to delete our wiki. It's very important, very great wiki. So we started with this, the question of social history and how you document that. And you have issues like conversation, local history, oral history, non-notable documents like diaries, correspondence, wills, possibly obituaries, dealing with translations. And there's not overlap between doing a social history and Wikipedia, because it just isn't. So then we're like, well, how do you organize that? And from there, we started with community social history wiki. And we're like, well, you can organize it using multiple layers. In this case, concepts like people, places, which is Australia or geographic, music, and then we're like, well, then you take bands, and you have bands in Perth, which connects to Perth. You could have your non-notable documents like pay bills for Perth. You get your bands like Kill Devil Hills. You can connect the people back to Paul Jones, but there's a lot of Paul Jones, so you might need a disambiguation because there's Paul Jones the musician, Paul Jones the architect, Paul Jones the chef. After this we also talked about, well, you can do some of the things, the question of red links. And you can put red links on things like lists of bands in Perth, lists of bands by city, list of cities, list of bands, list of Gordons in Australia. And then you can do that. And then from there, we talked about other aspects of what are the boundaries here. In doing a social history wiki, how do you decide what to go in? And one of the questions was, where do you document information on Paul Jones in America? Everything we did so far was very Australian-based. And then we're like, oh, after the second session, we came up with the question of inter-wiki linking. When do you fork? What is notable in a community social history wiki? How do you interlink in a healthy manner? So then we decided we would take food in Tasmania, and we took food in Tasmania down to recipes from Tasmania. And at this point, do we need a new wiki, or is the scope an issue? And then we're like, well, we'll have a random fish recipe from Hobart, and then we're like, well, that might not be that relevant to community social history wiki because food isn't as regional in Australia as it is in the US. So then we went up to recipe wiki. The question of, the recipe wiki is probably limited scope. They only want to know about cooking and food and people who cook. But you still have the question of which recipes, whose recipes, which restaurants are they from, the origins, the period of time from these recipes, and how that connects back kind of to community social history wiki. And then we're like, well, recipe wiki could have some shared content with organic produce type issues. And that and sustainability wiki, they could have some overlap. So then the question of how can social history wiki help recipe wiki, helps sustainability wiki work on completing their missions. At that point, we got a little off topic and we went to celebrity wiki. At this point, the Victorians like, we delete that. And should we even have a celebrity wiki? Should celebrities wikis be out there, or should they be working with things like the sustainability wiki if you've got someone who crosses over there? Can we delete celebrities? Answer that one is no. Then we got even more QC, and we had a category called celebrity chefs in Tasmania with 2 heads and married to their cousin, which, if you follow that around the corner, and that connects back to chefs. Anyways, And then we're like, oh, that relates to Australian Joke and Culture Wiki, which then connects to Curtis Stone, who also appears in Celebrity Wiki, and now we cannot delete celebrities. Then we're like, well, we should try to get this further around, and we're like, we'll get the rock lobster. We know the rock lobster would be in the Sustainability Wiki, and we know the rock lobster Sustainability Wiki, and we know it would be in Recipe Wiki, and we also know that follow the line, follow the line, follow the line. Rock lobster would be in Commons, Wiki Books, Wiki Quotes. Someone's got to said something nice about that. Then you got Species Wikis, Wiki Press, Wikiversity, Wiki Species, and then someone's going to have debated if rock wiki or rock lobster was a crustacean, so it's going to be a meta wiki. And then yeah, some questions of one wiki versus many wikis. They're layers of wikis, they're interwoven, they're interlinked. How do you universally identify? How do you take Curtis Stone and identify him uniquely in these different wikis, and what if there are other people named Curtis Stone? There's the whole question of structure versus freedom. When do you stop drilling down? In our community history wiki, we could go down as specific as random fish recipe from Hobart, but do we need to go there? Do we need an article about Paul Jones, the musician? So there's two philosophies generally. There's inclusionists and exclusionists. Inclusionists, just never stop drilling down. Exclusionists, yeah, stop drilling down. Are these two the same? We didn't come up with a real question for that. Then we were like, rock lobster, where else could rock lobster be? Well, he could be in a commercial products knoll, because everyone wants to sell their rock lobsters on a wiki. And then there's going to be a wiki about Google knolls. What
are you talking about?
I'm trying to explain my walls. Let's see, at that point, we came back over here and we're like, we need to go in the other direction.
And that looks like a fun session.
This was 2 fun sessions. See,
I mean, it's not necessarily my topic, that whole
see
thing.
boating accidents that Gordons have been involved in. So Gordons are from Australia, which connects to the people category. And boating accidents could be a pathology wiki, an emergency response wiki, obituary wiki. Is an obituary wiki social history or not? Coronial content wiki, a police report of death wiki, or just articles about these. And then we wanted to get to medical wiki, so we're like, boating accidents that Gordons have been in is Darwin Awards, and then we have medical wiki. And then there's the question of, do ambulance services that we mentioned over there actually belong in medical wiki? Then we're like, Cancer Australia has got...
oh my god, you put
debating,
that in!
Yes, we did. We're like, Cancer Australia is debating having a wiki for cancer. How does this affect the community? Is this a good idea?
And what did they say?
Well, there were 2 of us, and we decided we like all these wikis, but we weren't going to draw them all. And then we're like, what is a medical wiki? What are their boundaries? How do you attract a community that adheres to those boundaries? And then, what did we do? Then we're like, we need wikis to address specific categories and communities, and they function differently, so we need some more wikis. At which point, we had a funny joke that we really wanted to do. So math wiki, because there's the question of, can the topic be finite? Can the wiki end because not need to be sustained because you've covered everything? And then we're like, oh, that's Pi Wiki. Pi Wiki is one wiki with one article, and it's just pi. It's got a really long talk page. And then we're like, that math wiki. That math wiki goes back to Wikipedia. So in conclusion, wikis need to be sustained. Sustainable communities. I can't read what he wrote. It may be okay to have purpose and scope, but you still need to have a community and aspects of community that you need to be aware of: people, interest, cost, topicality, and stat.
Can you just let me know what